Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. My neighbor in the house is crazy. I live in a house with 3 other people, all 23 years old. It's about 72 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so our temperature stays between 68 and 75 degrees, depending on the day. One of my roommates, Mela, kept turning up the temperature every day. I would come home and see that the thermometer was 74 degrees, then 77 degrees, then 82 degrees, and today it went up to 93 degrees. When she set the temperature to 81, I wrote her a message with a question. Could she keep the temperature in the house at a comfortable level because it was getting very hot? She did not reply. When she set the temperature to 87, I asked her personally, could she please stop setting it so high? Because our house was becoming a sauna. At that point, she started yelling at me, calling me an inconsiderate fool. She said that she needed a warm temperature for her health reasons. She had never mentioned this before, even when we talked about the temperature. What would be optimal for everyone? I told her that it's over 80 degrees in the house. When it's 77 outside, it's ridiculous and stupid. It can be potentially dangerous because suddenly there's a fire. She started making fun of me, saying that I just didn't want to sweat and that I was too sensitive. We started arguing. Our third roommate joined us. He said that he understood why I was reacting this way, but that Mila didn't have to tell us about her medical problems, and we should respect her needs. I believe that although she is not obliged to tell us her medical information, but if she really needs to live in a house with a temperature of 87 degrees, that needs to be discussed in advance and by everyone. Such issues should be discussed in advance, and she should assume that others agree or disagree with it. In the end, we agreed to keep the temperature between 70 or 76 degrees. Now things are very tense. Mela thinks I'm stupid. Another neighbor thinks I feel like I'm going crazy with them now. Is this for me? For not meeting the medical needs of my roommate living in a hellish house? Michael, your roommate sounds like some kind of devil. Noah, there's your answer. I don't think this girl can let anyone live with her in peace. Get her out of here. If this is such an important issue for her, then let her think about herself. Let her go live alone and pay her own electricity bills. That way she will always have a comfortable temperature. Harper, if it's that bad, offer your neighbor to buy a portable heater, or you can buy a fan or air conditioner for your bedrooms. If the situation gets worse though, a person is not obligated to disclose medical information to anyone else. If they expect someone to accommodate their disability, it is quite expected that they will disclose what their problems are. Abigail, if you are allergic to something and you choose not to talk about it, then you can't get angry if other people bring an irritant into the house. Medical conditions should be disclosed on a need-to-know basis, at least in a minimal way. And if your roommate really needs a higher temperature, she should tell the people who live with her about it so that there are no quarrels. Avery, I looked it up on Google, a medical condition that requires a high temperature, and all the results are about heat, namely stress, stroke, exhaustion, and a lot of information on how to treat them and how to avoid them. Honestly, I think this is complete nonsense. Wear more clothes. Actually, narrator, have you thought about taking off extra clothes at home? Given how hot it is in the house. Aiden, people can always wear more clothes and blankets, but you can't sweat like animals in the heat. Personally, I'm all for trying to be considerate of others' needs, but 90 degrees or more is an unreasonable demand. I'm even shocked that your other neighbor doesn't support you on this issue. I'll add more information about my story. I am moving out. This, combined with other situations, has pushed me to the point where I can no longer live with her. I am currently staying with a friend while I think about where to go from here. From the bottom of my heart, I thank everyone for helping me to realize that I am not crazy and that these were crazy living conditions. Next story. I have 2 sisters. My first sister was named after my grandmother, Sophia. By the way, she is getting married soon. Our oldest sister, Amelia, she had not met Sophia's fiancé before this recent incident because she lives in Berlin and we live in Paris. Sophia's future in-laws threw an engagement party for them, and Amelia came to attend. Sophia introduced her fiancé to Amelia, but then she had to leave because her fiancé wanted to introduce her to the other guests who had arrived. After they left, Elizabeth kept asking us if it was really Sophia's fiancé. Amelia replied, of course, or couldn't you tell by the suit? Elizabeth kept joking about how Sophia managed to get herself a guy like that he would date her, and that they were not very suitable for each other as a couple. She once said that she thought he was more intelligent and would want someone of a higher caliber, a decent status for his family. Until a certain point, I was not going to say anything to Sophia because I knew it would upset her. I really didn't want it to happen on her day. Elizabeth claimed she was joking and not really saying it. We will all be bridesmaids, and I know it will be accompanied by nice gifts and one wonderful free trip. I don't think Elizabeth deserves after what she said in her stupid jokes. I told Sophia about it, and she was very upset. So upset that she started crying and pacing from place to place. Her fiancé saw this, and now he doesn't want to see any of my sisters at the wedding. He did not invite them to all the pre-wedding events. This has caused a lot of drama in my family. My sisters and mom are very angry with me. My mom told me that sometimes it's better to say nothing and watch quietly, especially after I made Sophia feel so bad that she is trying to convince her fiancé that they should have a small wedding in the courthouse and make everyone apologize. Ava, if I were in the same situation, I would definitely tell my sister, especially if we are talking about what the sisters said. How cruel and mean of them. Her fiancé is to be commended because he defended his bride, disobeyed his sisters, and stood up for her. Jacob, they're just angry that they won't get free honeymoon trips. Exactly. If they're already saying it at her pre-wedding party, it's scary to think what bad things they will say at the wedding. There will be other people there who will definitely hear. They probably passed everything on to the bride, just like the girl in the story did. It's very stupid that everyone is angry with you, while your older sister could have kept her jealous mouth shut and prevented all of this from happening. Layla, you have essentially ruined Sophia's joy about her upcoming wedding. She lost her self-confidence so much that she wanted a wedding in court with an apology. How many people dream of getting married in a court of law? And all because you thought Elizabeth didn't deserve the privilege of being a bridesmaid. Whether your sister was joking or not is none of your business, and not even Elizabeth's. And it's not anyone else's business but her fiancé's to decide whether Sophia is worth marrying or suitable for him, whether Sophia is good enough to be his wife. So you shared inappropriate gossip, which did no one any good, did not do anyone any good, as it always does. It only made a lot of people angry and ruined the beginning of this couple's life forever. Henry, no, she told me that their sisters were being assholes. Her sister had a right to know that before she let them be at her wedding. I would have been very upset and angry if I had found out after the ceremony that my two bridesmaids had not only treated me like traitors behind my back, but also that my sister knew about it and didn't tell me. It's really very upsetting and makes me angry with my sister because she hid the truth. So the narrator is the real heroine in this story. Now I want to tell a different story. The story will resemble a story about riding a roller coaster. I am quite old now, 52 years old. I raised my daughter Olivia, who is now 26. I have a husband who is 51. Olivia became pregnant with our first granddaughter, Charlotte, when she was only 18 years old. Her father did not leave the family and actively continued to participate in her upbringing. My husband and I also helped by taking care of the baby so that Olivia could focus on her studies. Olivia later had another child when she was in her 20s, a boy named James. Shortly after James was born, shortly after the birth of their second child, the father of both children stopped participating in the family's life. He moved to another state in the country, regularly paying child support. Olivia lived with us for free until she was about 3.5 years old. My husband and I took care of the children a lot, took them to school and cooked them dinner. We realized that Olivia did not have the financial means to move out. My husband and I felt that Olivia was not taking responsibility. After she broke up with her boyfriend, she started chatting online with a rich man in his 30s. She told us that she was in love with him and was going to move to him in a neighboring state to live with him, but she can't take her children with her. He hates children and doesn't want them in his house. My husband and I told her that this situation was absolutely crazy and that we would not take the children as a surety. Olivia burst into tears and begged us to let her hand over custody to us. She said that now she has a chance to live the life she dreamed of and not to have such baggage as the children. Now there will be no shackles in her life and her dream is now real. We consulted and agreed, but not for Olivia's sake, but for Charlotte and James' sake. We took out guardianship, and now we are the legal parents of these wonderful children. The poor children were heartbroken when Olivia left. For the first few weeks, they kept asking to call her. Every day they drew pictures for their mom. We tried to call Olivia so that the children could talk to her, but she did not often pick up the phone. After a few months, she became unreachable and did not respond to messages and calls for 2 weeks. Emily, any mother who gives up her own children in order to live her own life, drinking, going out, spending other people's money, without thinking about her children. You are not a mother at all. Mason, I personally think that even if she wanted to return to her children, it would only be because she could get free room and board. As soon as the next free opportunity comes along, she would gladly leave them behind. Liam also wondered about this. Although the story specifically states that the father pays child support, there is no mention of the mother. She really not think about her children that much and not pay a penny? I'm very glad you had fun with your sweet daddy, but you owe your children. This girl does not deserve the love of children. Your parents are raising them. They did not adopt these children. Even if they have full custody, she's still legally their mother, and she owes her parents tens of thousands of dollars. Sophia, even if she has waived her rights, she is most likely not obliged to pay child support. Your adult daughter has made her choice. Now she will have to live with its consequences for the rest of her life. From the moment she left you, you are the mother of these children. Your husband is their father, and you are right about everything. Your daughter is not capable of being a mother. Frankly, she cannot be a part of your family. She has made her choice. Unfortunately, not in the direction of family. You and your grandchildren were not her choice. If she doesn't show real change, she won't start to mend fences. In that case, keep your grandchildren away from her. She should have been doing her job and taking care of her children, not you, who are no longer at a very young age. Liam, you shouldn't let her get away with it. This girl has made a lot of mistakes. She owes both you and her own children, I'm guessing. But maybe you should get a child therapist involved to try to determine what is best for the children. Take professional advice. It's a complicated issue, but your daughter clearly has her priorities wrong. You deserve to be praised for taking care of her children. She can't just pick up and leave the kids whenever she wants. Don't let your kindness overcome your justified anger at your daughter. My next story. My wife has a lot of problems with my family, mainly my mother. I have discussed her inappropriate behavior towards my wife with her mother on many occasions and have set consequences and limited contact when necessary. My wife even told our therapist at an appointment that I had done a good job. Now my problem is what I feel, that my wife is setting up too much space. At the moment she is just nitpicking. Recently we spent some time with my family, and afterwards my wife came up to me. She asked me if I had noticed that my mom was squirming again. Whenever I was near her, I didn't notice it at all. I know that she no longer feels comfortable when I show her any attention. I respect that, and she doesn't want to sit next to me at the table, but I am not sure that she is not really offended. She also claims that my mother pushes her away and physically withdraws from her, doesn't want to see her. My wife asked me to talk to her because she believes that this could set an unhealthy precedent for our children. I told her that my mother does not owe me any favors. My wife pointed out that my mother kisses many other family members on the lips, and she doesn't even let me get closer than 4 meters to her. I said that this is her right. She said it makes her uncomfortable, and she wants normal boundaries to be set. If my mom physically flinches when I approach her, then we will leave immediately. I refused my wife, and we had a fight over it. Eventually, I decided to ask her why she didn't want me to have a family. She looked confused, and I said that was her goal with all these ridiculous boundaries. Because how else can you justify her telling someone not to flinch? She started crying and said that I was trying to portray her as the main offender, and that what I said was manipulative. Lillian, your wife is confusing boundaries by controlling other people's behavior. She decides how she and your children interact with her, and only that. She cannot decide how your mother should interact or respond to her son. She cannot control how your mother feels. It doesn't feel right. Isaac, frankly, if your mom has been reprimanded that many times, she is probably keeping her distance. And there's a good reason for that. I don't know about past problems. But in this case, your wife is being ridiculous and stupid. It seems to me that your wife is the problem, not your mother. Does your wife realize that, just as she is allowed to set boundaries, so is your mother? She is, in fact, trying to set a boundary that your mother is not allowed to dictate who she can let into her personal space. Brooklyn, that's very ridiculous. It's just like you say, your mother doesn't owe you love and kindness. A story that really surprised me. I do not forbid my son, who is 13 years old, to communicate with this friend. I will call him Carter. I just limit his communication a little bit. Carter may have some kind of disability. I don't know how to say it correctly, but Carter is very clingy and needs attention. He always says things like, I like you, you're my friend, and I'm your friend. And he says what he would sacrifice for my son. And he asks strange questions about life and animals. It's exhausting just to listen to these conversations, let alone to experience them and understand them. I noticed that my son doesn't spend time with his other friends because he always needs to be with Carter. He doesn't have any other friends, and Carter doesn't want to socialize with my son's other friends. So I told my son that he needs to learn to appreciate himself and make time for other friends and hobbies. He shouldn't be constantly taking care of someone who is insecure. He should spend time with other friends and his hobbies instead of constantly sitting with insecure Carter. My son said he would feel guilty. He doesn't want Carter to feel rejected. I asked him to tell Carter that he can only meet with him 3 times a week, not any day as his mother did, because that's the new rule. Although my son often says he feels guilty and asks for an exception because Carter says he doesn't have time to do his schoolwork at the last minute anymore. Now I notice that he looks happier and more energetic. He looks more rested. My husband thinks that I control him too much, and our son is too old to be told who to communicate with. The other boy's mother also contacted me. She said she wanted to talk, although I have not yet responded. I assume that she does not approve of children going out less. Even my son, who admitted that he has less stress now. He said he felt guilty and that I was behaving badly. But is that right? It's hard to argue with the majority. But it's also hard to argue with the results. Am I acting like an overly concerned mother towards this poor little guy? Leah, your son is being treated like an emotional support dog. He is being isolated. This may not be intentional, but it is happening anyway. Moreover, your son feels guilty for not being able to be with Carter all the time. That doesn't mean it's healthy for him to be with Carter all the time. Frankly, it feels like an abusive relationship. Guilt, pain, stress, emotions. Carter needs to talk to a doctor or an adult or someone else. But all of Carter's problems are his, not your son's. And if Carter refuses to talk to other children, then your son is not obligated to calm his anxiety every single time. Carter is insecure, but that doesn't mean your child should be his support. This is a valuable lesson for everyone. When it comes to friendships and romantic relationships, you cannot endlessly and actively sacrifice yourself for someone else. You deserve support too. You cannot help someone who is not willing to help themselves. Such a person will make you responsible for 100% responsibility for making their life bearable. Dylan, but you won't always be around to set boundaries on your son's behalf. This is something he will have to learn to do on his own in the future. So maybe you should meet with him soon and talk about what changes have occurred since you set this boundary. Of course he feels guilty, but what else does he feel? What has changed in his life now? What are the positives and negative aspects of this change? As for Carter's mother, that's another topic. You don't necessarily have to explain yourself to her, because your child is here too.